I think that for some reason, society celebrates people that have children, and if you don't have children, you end up being seen as some kind of failure. That's at least how I feel. It's my birthday next week, I'm turning 42, I don't have a family, and I can't help but feel like a failure. So I decided to create this video to share some of these reflections. If you're in a situation like me where you're unsure of whether you want to have a family or not, I hope that these thoughts can help you navigate your own situation. And at the end of the video, I'm going to share a realization about what it is that I really want when it comes to the question of whether or not to have a family, and how I plan about actually getting it into my life. So, to start with, I first want to share an important insight, and the insight is that there is no right or wrong choice or path that we take in life. I was talking about this with the shaman Huda Yande last month in Brazil, and he was saying this, that he feels many people fall into the trap of thinking that there's a right or a wrong path. So we end up becoming so self-critical because we always wonder whether maybe I've made all these wrong choices to get myself here. And if you're in a situation like me, being 42, single, not married, no kids, and you just wonder if you should have a family or not, you can't help but kind of get into that monkey mind of think about all the missed opportunities, the relationships that could have gone somewhere if I was a little bit more mature back then. And I think about this stuff all the time, I can't help it, but embracing that insight that there's no wrong path, that all there is right now, this path we're currently on, it's a really empowering insight that's helped me a lot. So if you're in this situation, I hope that helps you too. The other thing I want to share, just quickly, is a great insight from the philosopher Alain de Botton. So he created the School of Life. They do some great videos, and there's a video on whether or not to have children. And he makes the important point that whatever path we choose in life, there is going to be inevitable suffering. And a good way to evaluate the different options before us is to acknowledge the suffering of every path. So for example, if we're on the path of getting married one day, there is going to be suffering that comes from being married. And I know that probably some people may even comment below to acknowledge that there's a lot of suffering that comes from being married. But for example, you get married and you're going to give up on a lot of variety in our relationships. You're going to give up on freedom and independence. You've got to compromise so many different things. But the path of staying single and preserving that freedom is also going to lead to the inevitable suffering of loneliness. I experience loneliness quite a lot, and it's challenging at times, and you can't help but think, I'd love to share what's going on with someone special. If you go down the path of having children, there's inevitable suffering that comes from having children. I mean, there's the sleepless nights, there's the messy house, there's the disruption to your routine, the losing your autonomy, there's someone completely dependent on you. I can't even imagine how challenging that's going to be. Then there's the inevitable disappointment that you're going to have in your children, because we can't help but have expectations of what they can become, and they're going to fall short of our expectations, absolutely no doubt. It's going to be a disappointing experience. Then the path of not having children, and this is something I think about, and I also see a potential path of loneliness, especially as life goes on and we get older. I think there's a lot of meaning that can come from having close family bonds, children. I've got a good relationship with my parents, and even though we live in different countries, we catch up regularly and share our lives with each other, and I think that's really meaningful for all of us. So I see the path of not having that as full of suffering. So that's the next thing, is embracing there's no right or wrong path. Whatever path we're on is the path that we're on. And then let's acknowledge that whatever comes before us, there's no point idealizing one particular path. There's going to be suffering. For me, those two insights help me to feel so much happier in this moment, because the suffering I've got is my own. I can kind of claim it. I've got the path of being single and not having children. There's suffering on this path, but I can handle it. That's something I've created, and I don't need the suffering of the other paths. But then the final insight I want to share, which is helping me to resolve this question on whether or not to have children one day, is that I can create new kinds of relationships in my life that are going to open up so many different possibilities. So I have this insight because I watched, once again, for the umpteenth time, the masterclass by Huda Eyande, which is called The Art of Love and Intimacy. It is an incredible masterclass with a very powerful exercise in there that helps you to immediately transform your thoughts around relationships in your life. So I don't want to share the exercise with you here because it's much better to go and watch it for yourself. It's free. There's a link in the description below. But my insight from that was that in my relationships in life, I can stop thinking so much about what it is that I want to get from a partner, because that's kind of the trap that I often fall into. I'm always looking for that perfect partner, the person that's going to complete me, or the person that's going to fill these gaps of loneliness in my life. And instead, I learned that it's important for me to articulate what it is that a great relationship will bring me in terms of kind of emotional fulfillment, what it is that I'm searching for. And instead of focusing on getting that from someone else, it's important for me to start to bring that into my own life from the way I'm living my life. So in the case of getting a little bit stuck on whether or not to have children, I think deep down it's those family bonds that I'm looking for. It's that feeling of deep connection, like having a home that's created with someone else. So rather than feeling that that's missing, I can start to do more things that help connect me with other people based on those feelings. So for example, my very close friend Dennis and his wife Ella have just had a baby 4 months ago, a baby called Mava in Melbourne. And I'm heading over there in a couple of weeks to meet Mava for the first time and just celebrate with Dennis and Ella. I think that's just a beautiful thing to be doing. Just before that, I'm heading to Bangkok to catch up with my two brothers. We work together. We're very close. It's a kind of a family thing, and that's just a really wonderful thing to be doing. I realise that I keep on thinking that I'm going to find a partner one day, and we're going to start to do regenerative projects together in Southeast Asia. So buy some land and do some permaculture and just really get that going. I realise I don't need to wait anymore to wait for someone to share that with. I can get started now, so I can start to explore these regenerative projects and just start to bring that more into my life. So that's really my big insight from watching that masterclass, that we can get so trapped in the decision of whether or not to have children or whether or not to get into a relationship. It's always this whether or not to do this. But we've already got the life in front of us right now. That's just something really powerful. It's something really empowering. And I don't need to wait any longer for something to happen. I can just do this right now. So I've just moved to Singapore recently. I have been feeling a little bit lonely while I'm here, so that masterclass has helped me quite a lot. But I also just created a video about what to do when you're single and lonely in a city like Singapore.